Good evening and welcome to In Focus. Today we bring you the latest updates shaping the region and beyond. Tonight we explore the ongoing crisis in Lebanon, which continues to stir concern across the Middle East. We'll also examine yesterday's significant phone call between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as tensions rise. Plus, stay tuned for exclusive updates on the unfolding dynamics of the US presidential race. Well, welcome back, and now let us move to the critical phone call between US President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday that focused on its implications for US-Israel relations and regional stability. In recent developments, President Biden condemned the alarming rise regarding last attack. This follows a significant phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the first in nearly 50 days, where they coordinated responses to Iran's recent missile attack. While Biden reaffirmed America's commitment to Israel's security, he cautioned against targeting Iran's nuclear facilities during any retaliatory measures. According to the Times of Israel, Netanyahu is poised to respond forcefully to Iran, with his defense minister promising a lethal and precise strike. The Biden administration, however, emphasizes limiting military operations in Lebanon and maintaining a focus on minimizing civilian casualties. This reflects a broader strategy aimed at ensuring regional stability without escalating conflicts further. Additionally, Biden highlighted the urgent humanitarian situation in Gaza and the need for diplomatic efforts to release detainees held by Hamas. Both leaders agreed to maintain close communication in the coming days, signaling ongoing collaboration amidst these critical challenges. And providing more analysis into the current developments and updates about Biden-Netanyahu call, we're joined by, from London, by Mr. Tim Dawson, Deputy General Secretary of International Federation of Journalists. Good evening to you, sir.
Hello.
Hello. Now, given Biden's emphasis on limiting military operations and avoiding civilian casualties, how do you interpret the balance between Israel's need for a decisive response to Iran and the US administration's focus on regional stability? And what could be the implications that this will have on for future military strategies in the whole region?
Well, my hope would be that President Biden has persuaded the Israeli Prime Minister to start winding down their operations and to do everything in their power to avoid an all-out war and thereby guarantee some kind of stability in the region. It's clear that a humanitarian crisis of the most terrible nature is underway in Gaza, and the hardships in Lebanon are very considerable. And I think the attention of the world, in general, but Israel in particular, should be focused on how we deal with those not turning into a situation where thousands of people starve to death and yet more tens of thousands lose their lives, as so many already have.
Now, Biden expressed concern over the humanitarian situation in Gaza during, of course, his call with Netanyahu. How might this urgency influence Israel's operation decisions in the short term, and what role do you think the international community should play in addressing humanitarian issues while navigating the complexities of the military conflict?
Well, in truth, the humanitarian situation is not going to be properly resolved until some kind of permanent solution is found to the governance of Gaza. And one of the most depressing things about this conflict so far is that we hear very little talk about that. However hard the Israeli government are pressed, they don't seem to have any credible answers to the question of how Gaza in particular, but also the West Bank going forward, are going to be governed. And I think unless those questions are resolved, then the situation in both those territories is going to continue to be absolutely awful. I think the responsibility of the international community is to make clear that resolving those issues is absolutely at the centre of preventing this becoming an absolute tragedy. And clearly, it's an uncomfortable set of considerations for Israel. I well understand that. Whatever is the solution, it's unlikely to be one that is comfortable for them, but that's what will be necessary. And unfortunately, I think that the prospect of permanent war represents a kind of comfort zone for some members of the Israeli government, and the international community really needs to move them away from that with every power, both soft and hard, that can be mustered.
Now, Mr. Tim, both leaders have discussed the need for diplomatic initiatives to release detainees held by Hamas. In your view, what are the potential avenues for effective diplomacy in this context, and how can the U.S. leverage its relationship with Israel to facilitate the progress on this front?
Well, the release of the hostages is absolutely critical. To be perfectly honest, the best thing that could happen would be for Hamas to say that they recognise that keeping people as they have for over a year now is a terrible thing to have done, and to immediately release them. I think for the Israelis, the release of the hostages should be a greater priority. I think they should recognise that for many, many people in Israel, seeing their loved ones and members of their extended family returned home as safely as is possible after such a length of time is of enormous importance. Clearly, the United States is Israel's most important ally, and I think we have to accept that they are possibly making different arguments in private to those that they're making in public. But I think pressing Israel to engage in whatever way it can to try and ensure the return of the hostages is critical.
Indeed. With Iran's recent missile attacks prompting this high-level communication, how do you assess Iran's influence on the current tensions, particularly here in the region, and what strategies could the U.S. and its allies employ to counter Iran's activities while maintaining commitment to diplomatic engagement?
Well, Iran clearly presents a very major challenge, and there's no question that it has been funding proxies to make war on Israel. My sense is, their proxies, Hezbollah, have taken, some very significant and severe military setbacks, and the response has not been quite as one might have expected, perhaps suggesting that Iran isn't as bullish as some had initially feared. I think, with this slight lull in hostilities, that is an opportunity to try and find diplomatic means to reduce tension in the region and to try and find a settlement whereby Iran is not presenting itself as a permanent hostile actor to Israel, and we can move to a position where countries are able to live in peace alongside each other.
Mm-hmm. As Biden and Netanyahu agree to maintain close communication amidst all these crises, what do you foresee as the long-term impact on U.S.-Israel relations, particularly concerning military aid, intelligence sharing, and collaborative defense initiatives, considering these escalating tensions?
I think one of the consequences of the ongoing conflict has been a worldwide revulsion with some of the actions of the Israeli government. And I think the absolute certainty that Israel felt about its alliance with the United States and with other Western powers actually is being progressively eroded. And one senses, even for many people who have a deep instinctive desire to support Israel and its government, that actions that have taken place since the 7th of October have really damaged those relationships. What's also clear is that there is within the United States a significant body of people who identify more strongly with the struggles of the Palestinian people, and that not only are they vocal on the streets, but they are increasingly electorally active and important in some of the swing states who will decide the next presidency of the United States. Right. So I think for so long as this conflict goes on, the more Israel is damaging its international standing, both with its closest allies and with those who are further from its orbit.
Yes, that was Mr. Tim Dawson, Deputy General Secretary of the International Federation of Journalists. We thank you so much for your insight analysis. And let's delve into the latest developments in Lebanon amidst escalating Israeli raids as tensions rise. What are the risks of a potential ground invasion amid the mounting human losses? Stay tuned.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
In a significant escalation of hostilities, Israel has intensified its military operations in Lebanon, deploying additional troops and launching strikes against Hezbollah strongholds in Beirut. This comes as Hezbollah retaliated by firing 180 projectiles into Israel, most of which were intercepted, indicating a furious exchange between the two parties. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed responsibility for the airstrikes that allegedly killed high-ranking Hezbollah figures, including a potential successor to the group's leader Hassan Nasrallah, while the details remain unconfirmed by Hezbollah. This development marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing conflict, suggesting Israel's commitment to dismantling Hezbollah's leadership. Meanwhile, the New York Times mentioned that Israel's strikes have also targeted locations in Damascus, aiming to eliminate key figures involved in the arms smuggling. These actions highlighted the rising tensions in the region as both sides brace for further retaliations. While I'm providing more analysis on the current development in Lebanon, we're joined from Florida by Dr. Robert Rabil, Professor of Political Science at the University of Florida, Atlanta. Good evening to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. And how have the recent Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon intercepted, or rather impacted, Hezbollah's military strategy and leadership structure, particularly following the reported targeting of high-ranking figures in Hezbollah?
Well, as a matter of fact, Israel has continued with its plan to dismantle the military infrastructure of Hezbollah and also to eliminate the key figures of Hezbollah's leadership. This has been going on, and I don't think this is going to stop any soon before Israel comes to the conclusion that Hezbollah no longer pose a threat to Israel, and especially to the north of Israel. So I don't expect anytime soon you are going to have a truce or a ceasefire.
So we're not speaking here about the hostilities. So considering the ongoing hostilities, what are the immediate humanitarian implications for civilians in Lebanon by this war, particularly regarding human losses and the displacement crisis?
Yes. Well, this is one of the tragic consequences of this war. You have now over 1.2 million internally displaced. You have over 2,000 people casualty killed, and you have thousands of wounded. And really, in Lebanon now is facing a huge crisis, and this has spilled over into tension among and some of the communities in Lebanon. You have now more vocal voices in that what did Hezbollah do to us? It took us to a war that we did not want. You have others that will say no, still we support Hezbollah. But at the end of the day, really, indeed, you have a huge price that Lebanon is paying. And more so, Lebanon today, according to the Prime Minister of the caretaker government, has accepted the implementation of Resolution 1701, which mainly means that Hezbollah is ready to withdraw up to the Litani River. So this is where it is now. But as I mentioned, I don't see the dynamics of what's happening, despite the human rights toll and what's happening in Lebanon. I really don't think anything major is going to happen to stop the fighting. And more so, let me add, because I listened to your previous guest, there is also something about Lebanon and Iran. For Israel, they know that Hezbollah is the first line of defense and deterrence for Iran. So again, Israel is somehow more adamant of reducing and degrading the power of Hezbollah as a way to degrading the power of Iran, so that Iran, if something happens, and probably will not use Hezbollah's weapons to fire at Israel.
Mm-hmm. Now, from your point of view, how is the international community responding to the latest escalations in Lebanon?
Well, you have two now. You have United States and France. And United States and France, they are working together. They are working with the Lebanese government to try to stop the fighting. And of course, you have many human rights organizations. You have different countries, especially in the West and the Arab world. They are saying, listen, it's enough. We don't want to have a regional war. But also, on the other hand, what do you have? What kind of dynamics you have now in Lebanon and Israel? They both look at their battle, at their fight, as an existential fight. For Israel, it's an existential fight. They want to do away with the threat of Hezbollah. And more so, let me add this. In Israel now, you have enough leaders, and you have a consensus that today you have a chance to deal with Hezbollah once and for all. On the other hand now, on the other side of the border, Hezbollah said, listen, we have to fight. It's our existential battle. So this is why the dynamics is so difficult. Yes, you have concerns among the countries in the world, but sadly, the dynamics don't show or don't reveal an indication that the war is going to end anytime soon.
That, in yourself, you pinpointed your finger on a very important issue, which is this kind of war we're speaking about. What are the potential consequences of a ground invasion by Israel into Lebanon? And how might this escalate the current conflict beyond its already volatile state?
Okay, here let me answer. These are two questions, very important ones. I am a researcher of Lebanon. I was there in 2006. I served in the Red Cross in Lebanon during the country's civil war. I can tell you this, based on my analysis. Israel will not invade deeply into Lebanon as it did in 2006. Israel most likely, and based on what it's doing, where it's hitting, and especially, those notes it's giving to the villages, which villages Israel is sending notice to that they are going to be evacuated. They are going to go 25 kilometers deep, and then they are going to withdraw to 5-7 kilometers. During this time, they are going to use their air force. And already, as we have seen, Israel has really greatly penetrated the security apparatus of Hezbollah. They know exactly where are the leaders. And now we are talking about what we call, the third rank, not first rank, second rank, the third rank. Today, for example, or yesterday, they killed someone in Maroun al-Ras in the south. They killed one in the Golan Heights. So mainly, I feel that you are not going to have a huge invasion deep in Lebanon as they did in 2006 or 1982. I feel it's going to be mainly up to the Litani River. And also, I feel that the air bombing, the strikes, they are going to strike and try to eliminate as much weapons, as much platforms of missiles and drones as possible. And this is when Israel is going to decide, with cooperation with the United States. United States does not want a regional war, but also I also think that United States and Israel, they believe that Hezbollah has to be dealt with.
Given the historical context of Israeli-Lebanese tensions, what are the long-term prospects for peace in the region, and what measures could be taken to mitigate further violence and its humanitarian toll?
Yes. Well, now, I can tell you what's going on in Lebanon and Israel, and you have some kind of a really reconciliation, what they would like to have. Mainly the Lebanese government, the caretaker government of the Mikati. They feel now they are ready to go ahead and implement 1701. But also other people in Lebanon, from other sects in Lebanon, and I am very familiar with them. They don't want only 1701, they want 1701 and 1559. 1559 meaning that all militia in Lebanon, they have to surrender their weapons, period. Mainly the weapons only will be with the Lebanese armed forces. So I think, and this is exactly what Israel wants, and this is why I feel the war is gonna continue. So mainly now you have,
we've got
a
your point.
response from enough Lebanese people, including the government, that say, listen, we are ready to implement United Nations Security Resolution 1701.
Yes, we've got your point here,
and that's
Dr.
what Israel would like to have.
Thank you, Dr. Robert Rabil, Professor of Political Science at the University of Florida, Atlanta. We thank you so much for joining us today. And I guess that brings us to the exclusive update on the U.S. presidential race, analyzing the latest developments, candidate strategies, and the shifting political landscape as the 2024 election approaches. Stay tuned for the key insights and analysis.
We will build what I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it! As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
Now, according to the New York Times, in a remarkable fundraising achievement, Vice President Kamala Harris has raised over $1 billion in less than 3 months since entering the presidential race, surpassing all the previous records for campaign fundraising speed. Now, meanwhile, the Arizona Senate debate showcased a heated exchange between Republican Kari Lake and Democrat Robin Caligo, focusing on election integrity. The debate's personal attacks underscored the heightened stake at both candidates, aiming to sway voters in a tightly contested race. Providing more analysis on the current development on the U.S. election, we're joined from Washington by Ambassador Patrick Thuris, former U.S. diplomat. Welcome to you, Your Excellency, and good to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And Vice President Kamala Harris has reportedly raised over $1 billion in less than 3 months. How does this unprecedented fundraising milestone reshape the dynamics of the Democratic primary and potentially influence voter perceptions as the election approaches?
The $1 billion collected by the Harris campaign is a reflection of the Democratic enthusiasm. If we remember, the Democrats were extremely pessimistic about President Biden, especially after the debate with Trump that turned out so badly for Biden, and especially because his numbers were beginning to run low in all the so-called swing states. When the baton was passed to Kamala Harris, there was a surge of enthusiasm. People who were not going to vote, people who were disappointed, people who were convinced that the Democrats would lose but didn't want Trump, came out of the woodwork. So there has, for the first time in a long time, we are beginning to see a tremendous enthusiasm on the Democratic side. This an enthusiasm that was missing in 2020 and an enthusiasm that was missing in 2016 and earlier.
But Your Excellency, we're speaking about former President Trump continues to dominate headlines and rally support. And from your point of view, in what ways do you think this rhetoric and campaign strategy, especially around immigration and tax cuts, would resonate with voters compared to the more contemporary approach of candidates like Harris herself?
It's strange. This is a rather strange election, but it typifies a new trend in American politics. Each of the two principal candidates, Trump and Harris, has a core constituency that is committed to them, that no matter what they do, no matter what they say, good or bad, they are this 30 to 40% of the constituency will vote for their candidate. And it doesn't matter, like I said, even if the candidate makes big stumbles or says outrageous things. What the two campaigns are concentrating on is the relatively small, two issues. One, the relatively small number of people who have not made up their minds, who could swing from one side to the other. And here, the money makes a big difference. Secondly, there's another constituency that is ignored and that I believe may be coming out in this election.
Yes.
That is
actually, Ambassador Patrick, we ran out of time. So, Ambassador Patrick, there is former U.S. diplomat. Thank you so much for your insights here. And I guess that's all for tonight's In Focus. Thank you for joining us, and stay informed and stay tuned for the more insights in the coming days. Many thanks for watching.